Hi everybody, it's Ginell Cooper. I'm here today to do a really fun project with you. We're going to do this really cute granny stripe cardigan, kind of a short cardigan, and it's going to be really easy. But the fun thing about it is that it was inspired by a $750 cardigan. So what happened was I posted on our Facebook group this fun article that I found that said that wearing crochet tops is trendy. And I'm like, I've never been trendy in my life, but I wear crochet tops all the time. So I posted it on the Facebook group and everybody was like, oh my gosh, we're trendy, which, you know, we're probably not. But so we went down to the bottom of the article, you look through, I'll post the article into the description so you can see what I'm talking about. But there was a lot of like funky stuff in there that was cute and some of it was a little weird. But you get all the way down to the bottom and there's this cute cardigan sweater that is being sold by the brand name Free People, which I love that brand. It's a little expensive for what I usually wear, but they are selling the sweater for $750. I was like, oh my God. So you know how discussions happen in a Facebook group, and I was like, I'm pretty sure I could make that for under 50 bucks. And then I started thinking about it, and everyone's like, do it. And then I started thinking about it. I went shopping for yarn. I was actually able to get this really cute yarn for, I think it was like $7 a skein at Walmart. And so, or Walmart, did I say that right? $7 a skein at Walmart. So it worked out to be about $35-ish or 30, yeah, in that area. So I think I'm gonna make you a $750 sweater for $35. It's not gonna be the exact sweater. It's gonna be me looking at it and going, this is what I think they did. So it's made by an artisan. I can only hope the artisan is getting a lot of profit off of that sweater because I don't think that it costs that much to make. But if you look at the picture, which I'll put right here, this was my inspiration for it. It's actually super cute. It's done with a smaller yarn than I chose to do. And it looks like part of the cost of it is that there's 2 rows of color. They change color every 2 rows. And it looks like they did that, like, how do I say this? They bought a skein of yarn for every color. And I didn't do that. So I went ahead and got self-changing yarn. So instead of just little stripes of 2 rows, mine's gonna be kind of blocky, which I actually kind of like. So I'm pretty excited. So what I've done so far is I've drawn it out for you guys. So I'm gonna show you the drawing when we get a little bit up close and personal here in a second, and kind of explain how I came across all of those measurements and everything. It's done in 6 pieces total, but 3 pieces per side. So we're gonna start with the back, and then we're gonna do the front, and we're gonna attach it as we go to the back. So you have one long piece that just kind of goes like so. And then, and this is gonna kind of be like a wraparound look in the front, and then just kind of straight in the back. And then we're gonna do the sleeve. But we're doing 2 different kinds of yarn because we wanna have that sort of checker look that they did. So they did this color of yarn is going to match the sleeve on this side, and this color of yarn is going to match the sleeve on the other side, which is actually going to be really fun because for 2 reasons. One, you don't have to match your rows up or anything. You can just kind of be willy-nilly about it. And I think it's going to be super, super fun. So this is all I've accomplished so far. The reason I did the first part is because those of you who watch my videos know I wing it all the time. I literally just look at stuff and try to figure it out. And I'm hoping that this video will not only teach you how to make this cardigan, but make it to fit your body, and do it by measurements rather than stitch count, rather by yarn. Hopefully after you're done watching this video, you'll be able to make this with any size yarn, any hook you want, and there won't be a stitch count. You don't have to match me perfectly. I am going to link everything that I used in the description, and I have an Amazon affiliate link. I'm new to it, so hopefully I'll do it correctly. So those will have affiliate links on there, which means that if you decide to click on it and buy those, that I supposedly get a little bit of a kickback. I have no idea. I've never actually seen it happen. But you don't have to buy from that. If you want, you can just go, or if you can find a cheaper deal at Walmart as opposed to Amazon, then go for it, right? So anyway, this is gonna be really fun. I've actually already got, so this size yarn is a size 4, and for this one I am using Mandala Ombre, which is a Lion Brand product. And it's a size 4 yarn. It actually asks for a, I think it was an eye hook. I went down a size just because I wanted it to be a little bit tighter. You can do whatever you want with that. The colors I'm using right now, this one's called Happy, and this one is called Mantra, which Happy Mantra kind of seem to go well together. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started on this. Yay, I'm so excited to get going on this. Okay, so I kind of hovered around this for a long time because I feel like I made a promise to everybody that I could do this, and then I kind of had like a, I kind of had second thoughts and I was like, maybe I can't do this. But it's very, very easy. I look at things and I go, that looks so easy. I'm pretty sure I could do that. And if I can do it, then certainly you can, because I'm not like a master crocheter or anything. So I just kind of am gonna figure it out as I go. So I'm gonna put the picture of the inspiration up here for just a little bit so you can see it. But basically what we're looking at is we just need a piece, and in theirs, it's striped every 2 rows, right? So let's look at this row. And they used, I think it looks like sparkle yarn, and I think they actually used maybe a size 3. So it's actually like a skinnier, thinner yarn. So this is maybe a little bit thicker than what they did on that one. You can do whatever you want on yours. I think my next one's gonna be a little bit thinner too. So, but this is just, I use this yarn because I just love the colors, and I loved that it was self-striping, and I liked the spacing of the striping on it. So that way you don't have all those ends to weave in. This literally, you're just gonna have the starting end and the finishing end to weave in on these. So super easy in that way. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna do this back. And what you're gonna need is you're gonna need the colors that you're gonna start off with for these 3 pieces, and it can all be one color. So I've already done the first 3 pieces, and I did it in this, this is called Mandala Ombre, and the color is called Happy. And then the second 3 pieces are going to be done in my second set of color. This is called Mandala, or this is the Mandala Ombre again, but this is called Mantra is the color name on it, which is funny. It shows a purple and there's no purple, I don't think so, in there. But it kind of looked like a rainbow and sky to me, so I kind of liked how it looked together. We don't want the stripes to match, so we want them to be off from each other, and I think that even makes it look cuter, and it's less work for you and less stress. So, so just let it go the way it will naturally go on there. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do the back piece, and then we're gonna do the front piece, and then we're gonna attach it as we go, right there. And then we'll do the sleeve last. I know I was gonna show you guys to do the sleeve first because it's easy and it's just a rectangle and you don't have to do any fancy neck stuff on it. But to be honest, I ended up changing the measurement of my sleeve. I originally had it 15 inches long and it was a little bit too short, so I ended up making it 18 inches long, and that was based off of where the shoulder seam landed on this part here. So, so I think you should do the sleeve last, just so that you kind of can decide how long you want it. You may want it shorter, you may want it to be long and floppy over your hands. It's totally up to you. So the first thing you want to do, of course, you're going to need your hook. I believe these call for a size I hook. I went with a size H. It's just my favorite size. So, and I just like the way it turns out. It makes it a little bit tighter. You are going to need scissors. You're going to need a tapestry needle for weaving in your ends, but you're not going to need it that much. We'll probably need it more for sewing up the side. I haven't decided yet how we're going to attach this to this, because the arm's going to go right here. And I already know how we're going to attach the arm, but I'm not sure how I'm going to do this, if I'm going to do the side the same way. So it might just be easier. We'll see how that turns out. But the first thing you're going to want to, and you're going to need stitch markers, definitely, and you're definitely this is going to be your best friend. Get yourself a measuring tape. So stitch markers, I just use them, sometimes I use them to count stuff, and sometimes I just use them to mark where I was. For me on this one, I used the stitch marker when I started doing the decrease, because the decrease is so gradual, it goes over like 4 rows. It has like a 4-row repeat in the decrease, and sometimes just marking where you're at is helpful on that. So what you want to do first is you want to go ahead and measure from your waist in the front over your shoulder to your waist in the back. For me, that was 40 inches. That's what we're gonna base the front and back off of. Just split the difference. So you got 20 inches long in the back and 20 inches long in the front. Then you're gonna wanna measure shoulder to shoulder, but kind of like where you want the seam to go. So for me, I didn't do the tops of my shoulders. I did sort of slightly off my shoulders because I want it to hang a little bit down. So for me, that was 20 inches. So we split the difference in the backs, 10 inches across the back, right? From your neck to your shoulder seam, so like kind of where you just want it to be. If you want it to be up tight across your neck, then that's up to you. I like to have a little bit wider neckline on top. So I kind of went from like my, what do you call that, clavicle, out to your shoulder seam where the seam's gonna land. And for me, that was about 5 inches. Around your upper arm. This is kind of important because for me, I have big arms for a little person. I'm only 5'3" and I am not a big person, but I have large arms. So I measured around the widest part of my arm basically, because you don't want it to fit too tight, but you do want it to be snug there, because as you go out on your arm gets skinnier, but your tube is gonna be the same. So it's gonna hang down this way. Hopefully that makes sense. So you don't want it to be too wide, so that, or otherwise you're gonna have super floppy arms on the end there. So it's just a tube. So mine was 12 inches. And then from my shoulder seam, not my actual shoulder, but where the seam's gonna lay on my shoulder, down to my wrist, I originally put 15 inches and then I switched it to 18 because I wanted it to be a little bit longer. So that's a decision that you can make after these two pieces are together, and then you measure out like where the seam lands on your shoulder. Hopefully all of that makes sense. We're gonna start with this piece right here, and I'm gonna show you just the basics of how to make a granny stripe. They seem super easy, and they really, really are, but for some reason I couldn't find any really good videos I couldn't find any videos at all about how to decrease a granny stripe and do it properly. So that's going to be a big part of what we do too. But let's start with the back section. For me, this is what my back section looks like. So the back section basically is just a rectangle, except that when you get up to the top, you're gonna scoop the neck a little bit right there. So we're gonna basically do a really fast decrease right there. Where on the front part, you're doing a very slow decrease. This one's a really fast decrease. So, and I'll show you how to do that. But let's just start off at the bottom and work our way up to the top on that. And you're going to grab your yarn. Again, I don't care like what colors the stripes are. I'm not trying to match anything up. I have found that on this Mandala Ombre yarn, it's very hard to find the center. They have it really, really hidden in there. So I'm gonna do that and get this set up and ready to go. And then we're going to start on the first row. That went a lot better than I thought it was gonna be. My yarn barf on this one was much smaller, but see how it's like the beginning is just really hidden in there. So my yarn barf on this one was like huge. So let me just find this beginning. So when you do your row, you're going to do it in multiples of 3. So in your chaining. So if you watch just about any video on granny stripes or the granny stitch, each granny cluster is made of 3 double crochets, and then you skip to 3 double crochets on the first row. When you get to the top row, you're just going in that in between. So you're only counting on this first row. After that, there's no counting, right? Super easy. Most videos will tell you to do multiples of 3 plus 1. I am not going to tell you to do that because I don't like that extra stitch that they do when you get to the end there. It's like the plus 1 is supposed to be so that it has like a little crick at the top. Hopefully that makes sense. I just do, whenever I am doing double crochets, I always chain up 2, not chain up 3, and they're basically calling it chain up 3. So it just makes for a nice, look at how perfect that line is, and that's what I prefer. It's not like floppy. So okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna do multiples of 3. For me, I did 10 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's 30 stitches across, and that's what I'm gonna do here. So again, that Don't go off of my stitches because your tension and my tension are going to be different. Go by measurement. Just know that it is going to expand by probably a full block when you start going. So when you're doing your chaining, whatever your measurement is, give yourself a little bit of space for it to expand out. So if I'm trying to get to 10, I might go to like 9.5, right? We'll see actually where the chain lands on that. Okay, chain 30. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so there's 30. If I lay it flat in measurement, it comes out to like 9 inches. So it's actually gonna expand by like a full inch because 30 is what I did over here. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you're trying to go for 11 inches across the back or 12 inches, just give yourself like an inch for it to expand, maybe 1.5 inches, depending on how long or how big you're trying to make it. Each chain is made up of 3 pieces of yarn. There's 2 over here and 1 on the bottom. I am going to go through the back loop just because I want that bottom. Usually when you go into the chain, you go through the two yarns on top and 1 on the bottom, right? But I actually want this bottom row to match the top row. So it has that nice like finish that matches all the way around. So I'm gonna go through the back loop of the chain. So you're gonna go 1, 2, go to the 3rd one and go through the back loop right there so that you're creating 2 loops on the bottom. And then, whoops, I didn't double. Let me do this again. You're gonna do double crochet. So wrap it once, go through the back loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, and then do your double crochet. Okay, again, in the same loop. So yarn over, go through that loop, and then double crochet. It's so weird, whenever I start a video, I'm always super awkward right at the beginning. Once I get going, it'll get a lot more smooth. Okay, so that's a cluster right there. Your first cluster is made up of 3 double crochets, including part of that chain right there, right? So now you're gonna skip 2 chains, 1, 2, and there's going to be a new cluster right there. Go into the back loop and do 3 double crochets in that same loop. See that? So you got 2 clusters now. You're going to continue to do that all the way across. 1, 2, skip those first 2 and go into that 3rd one right there. Back loop. So again, you have 1 yarn on the front and 2 yarns on the bottom part. And do all 3 of them in here. I'm gonna be honest, I don't enjoy crocheting into the chain. That's why I usually do foundation rows to start off, but this one, just to make it look cleaner and make it look like a nice granny stitch all the way around, I kind of have to follow the rules instead of breaking the rules. So that's why we're doing it this way. But see how the bottom has a nice like braided look instead of just having, usually there's just 1 piece of yarn on the bottom and there's actually 2. That's why I did that way. You can do it however makes you happy. This is your sweater, so you don't have to do it my way. So I will continue and I'll meet you at the end. And there should be, for me, there's going to be 10, but it should turn out to be the number that you, it should turn out to be even. You should be finishing on this last stitch right here. Okay, so I finished. I have 10 clusters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And it comes out to be, if you stretch it, about 10 inches. It matches this, and that's what I care about. Because once it's not gonna truly be the right size until we get a couple of rows in there, because that's kind of what stretches it out. So just keep that in mind when you're doing it. If it feels a little short, just like, I can't tell you how many times I undid that because it ended up to be 12 inches wide and I didn't want it to be too big. So, so that definitely a little bit shorter is better because it is going to stretch out a little bit. So you finished your first row. It's all set. From here on out, it's super easy. So all you're going to do is you're going to chain 2. Now, if you watch any granny stitch video, it's going to tell you to chain 3. I don't do that because, like I said, I like my sides to be nice and straight. I chain 2. That's just a personal preference. You can chain 3 if you want to. And then you go right into doing your double crochet clusters, but you're going to do them in this space right here, and just do that all the way across. So 3 double crochets in this space. And just know that every row is going to be opposite. So when you're coming back, if there is a cluster below and a space in between, there's going to be a cluster right here. So you would do them here. Hopefully that makes sense. If there's a cluster, or you're going to skip over, it's going to be like a checkerboard. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're doing it. You're not going to chain or anything. Just go straight into the next double crochet cluster, 3 right in here. This is so easy and so fast. If you've ever done granny stitch before, like I watched an entire season of a show while I was doing those. It was not a very big season. It was only like 6 episodes, but it's just kind of mindless and fun. And so you can, you can actually pay attention to a TV show while you're doing this if you want to. My yarn will loosen up once we get done with this like center section. It's always a little bit tight right in the middle there. So just keep doing that until you get all the way across the other side, and then I'll show you what to do on the 3rd row, and then I'm going to let you just go until we get to the right measurement in your length in the back. So meet me over here and we'll go to the 3rd row. See how that just like stretched out nicely, so it matches the other side perfectly. So we notice how granny stripes or granny stitches make kind of this little checkerboard. So when you finish this row, you're going to be off by 1. You're going to be offset. So what you're going to do is you're going to just go ahead and double crochet into the top. You can do it one of 2 ways. On the edges, I like to actually go into the chain. So the 2nd chain up, I'll just do a double crochet into that chain. But you can, if you would rather, you can just go into the hole created by that chain on the side. It's totally up to you what look you like better. So from here, so now you made an open space right there, right? So they should be like a checkerboard. So there's a cluster, open space, cluster, like that. So this next one up, we're going to chain 2. And you're not going to jump over this time. If you jump over here, you're going to start decreasing. So you're going to want to match the checkerboard below it. So if there's an open space right here, you're going to do your next cluster right here. So this first chain 2 counts as part of your cluster. So you're going to just do 2 double crochets to finish it off. Just like that, and it'll make a nice straight line right there. Then you're just going to go ahead and continue on and just keep going back and forth just like that until you get it to almost the length that you want it to be in the back. So for me, I ended up decreasing about 4 rows before I finished. So give yourself like, I'm going to say, here, where's my little measuring tape? So for me, I already know how many rows I'm doing because I've already done this, right? But for me, I just did a couple inches shorter than what the whole length of it was going to be. So I originally, what was my original drawing? My original drawing was 20 inches down, and I ended up starting my decrease at 18 inches. So I gave myself 2 inches to do that decrease. Hopefully you can see that. So give yourself 2 inches less than what you wanted to do for your full length for the back. Let's stop there, and then I'll show you how to do the decrease on it. Meet you there. Okay, so I've come to the end of this. It measures out at about, it's a little less than 18, but I did the same number of rows as I did on this one. So one yarn might be a little bit thinner than the other, even though they're the same company and everything. So, or it could just be because I've been playing with this one so much I've stretched it out. So I am just going to trust that when I line these up, it's all gonna work out because it's the same number of rows. So what we're gonna do is, just for reference, you can kind of see what I did on this one. We are going to decrease very quickly, and we're just going to do the last 4 rows right here. So when we decrease, what we're going to do is we're just going to come to the top of this. We're going to chain 2. We're going to jump over and do a single crochet, or actually slip stitch. So chain 2, slip stitch, can't speak. Chain 2, slip stitch into the space, do it again on this one, and then we're going to chain 2, and then we're going to do the rest of the block across. Then when we come back, we're going to chain up 2, and we're going to do the same clusters across, but we're going to do 1 short, and then we're just going to double crochet into that space, and then double crochet up and do 1 short. So we're just going to keep making it shorter as we go. So this was actually the original decrease I did on the front, but it was way too quick. Like it made it decrease too fast. So this is a normal decrease, I think, but then when we do the front, which is going to be the next step, when we do the front panel, our decrease is actually going to take, in order to decrease 1, it's going to take us like 3 rows to do it. So so this is what we're going to do just to finish this one off real quick. I'm going to do it on camera, and then we will start on the next section. I got a little out of control. I was watching Manifest, which is a really cool TV show. And I was watching and stitching at the same time, and I kind of lost track of where I was, so I ended up having to take a bunch out. It goes really fast when you're doing something else. So, okay, so here we are. I am at the end of that. I'm going to chain 2, and then you're just going to slip stitch, jump over here and slip stitch into that. Chain 2. It's just the gap in between. So the gap in between where you would normally do your cluster, you're going to jump over and slip stitch into that. Just like that. So you've already kind of made that connection there. Now what we're going to do is we're going to chain 2, and we're going to finish that row with our regular clusters in the space right there. And what we're going to end up doing is taking this down from 10 clusters, for me anyway, and from my measurements, we're going to take it down from 10 clusters to 5 in like 4 rows. So that's why I skipped 2 on that first one. And then the rest of the rows are going to take down 1 cluster per row. I think technically I actually ended up skipping 3. 1, 2, 3, and then so we're going to go down from 10 to 7, and then 6, and then 5. Okay, so now we're going to chain up 1 or 2 like normal. Turn it, and we're going to do our clusters, but this time we're going to come up 1 short. Always, if you want to share pictures of your finished work, I love to see them, and so does everybody on our group. So make sure to come join us at Ginell's Quarantine Crochet on the Facebook group, because that's where I'll share pictures of the second set. In fact, the last video I did was the fingerless gloves in the Tunisian knit stitch, which was really fun because it looks like they're knit, but they're not. And nice tagline. And so I did another set, and I posted a picture of that on there so that people could see what they look like in a different color with a different yarn. And so that's probably what I'll do with the second jacket or the second cardigan I do. Okay, so normally you would jump over and you would do another cluster right there, but we're not going to. We're just going to grab it. So just going to do your double crochet and grab the top of that. And what it does is it's going to create this nice little diagonal line right there. See how it just perfectly follows those 3 stitches right there. So now we're going to do it again. We're going to chain up 2. This was all the extra that I was watching TV and got out of control. And then turn it, and then go ahead and do your clusters to return back. And remember, you continue to go inward instead of doing the one there on the edge. I had someone comment on one of my videos that she was frustrated that I didn't explain the exact stitch to put. I tend to go, put your hook into this stitch right here, and maybe I'm not explaining. It's the space between these two clusters. I'm a very visual learner, so so me like telling you, oh, go 3 stitches over, you're basically skipping 1, 2, 3 stitches, right? And then you're going in, but it's just easier to say, go into the space between the clusters. And hopefully you understand that. If you don't, please don't get angry. Just tell me that you need more explanation and I will give you more explanation. Okay, so our goal is to get to 5 and that is 6. So we're gonna do 1 more this way and then we'll be done. One, 2, 3, 4. 1 more cluster. Okay, and then you're gonna just do a double crochet into the top of, this is that diagonal right there. Hopefully you can see that on camera. The little, these are all like double crochets and chain 2s that are connected to each other. That's where we're gonna end, with just a double crochet right there. Like that. And then you're just going to knot it. Okay, so go ahead and weave in your ends on this, and then you have 1 panel done. So the next panel we're gonna do is the front, and then when we get to the top of the front, we actually are gonna do kind of a join as you go, but it's really just, it's not a join as you go. I'm doing the slip stitch thing across the top. I'm just not breaking it before I do that, so I'm going right into it. So I'm gonna go ahead and start the next one and set that aside. And so I already know, I feel like I'm cheating, but I already know how many clusters I need to do on the bottom. And I actually wrote it down. Here, we'll go back to this. So I actually wrote it down on here. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna start at this side and we're gonna work our way up. The reason I didn't just go, like we started in the back and we worked our way up and we stopped right here. The reason why I didn't just continue on is because the stitch, actually granny stitches are, they have kind of an up and down. So they look like little V's when you look at them. So if I continued on, my little V's would have been upside down. So, and if that doesn't matter to you, then you could probably just continue on if you wanted to and go kind of the opposite way that I'm going. But I like for my stitches to all be up and down and be the right direction. So that's why we're starting at the bottom and going back up this way. This right here is about 17 inches. I just measured kind of where I wanted it to land when it wraps. It's gonna kind of wrap around the front. I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm probably not gonna wear it that way. It's that way in the picture of the inspiration. But I'm probably not someone who's gonna tuck a sweater into jeans. I'm probably more apt to just let this hang. So this little rectangular part, or sorry, this little triangular part right here is probably just gonna hang down the front on both sides. But you know, I might wrap it, and my daughter suggested maybe putting a button when you wrap them so that you can connect it. And we might do that too. So we'll get to that when we get to the end. But for me, it was about 17 inches across. You may want to, I originally had it at 15 inches because, you know, 5, 10, 15 made sense, right? But I actually kind of wanted it to wrap a little bit further than that. So I went a little bit further. So, but it did actually end up being 5 clusters, 10 clusters, 15 clusters. So maybe they just get wider as they go. But anyway, so that's where we're gonna be. I'm gonna make 15 clusters on the bottom. 15 times 3, because remember we're doing multiples of 3, is 45 chains. So again, I am kind of cheating a little bit. Go ahead and do whatever works with your measurements that you took. You may want a couple extra clusters, you may want a couple less clusters, but just make sure it's in multiples of 3. 45 chains done. Just like before, what we're going to do is we're going to double crochet into the back loop of the 3rd chain down. So not the one that we're in, but 3 past that. 1, 2, 3. Then you're going to turn it and go into that back little loop right there. And I know it's awkward, but I think it makes for just a much prettier edge on there. So double crochet, and then 1 more double crochet, because remember that those chains on that side count as the first part of the cluster. So when you're done with the first cluster, it should look like that. It should have the chains basically continuing on and then 2 double crochets, creating a 3 double crochet cluster. Then you're going to skip 2 and do the same thing in the back stitch, only this time it's 3 double crochets. Just like that. You're going to continue doing that all the way across. I will meet you at the end. When you're kind of figuring out how you're going to make this nice even decrease so that you can get from one point to the other, there's a little bit of math. Don't worry too much about it because you can always kind of fudge it a little bit at the end up here, which I think I actually ended up doing a little. But it'll turn out just fine. But just try to get it close. Kind of do a little bit of math there. But I'm going to show you how to do it. Next thing you're going to do is you're just going to do one more regular row, and then I'll show you how to start decreasing. So you're going to chain up 2, turn, and you're going to do your clusters all the way across. Okay guys, so this is the part that I undid and redid the most, which was the decrease on this part, because I wanted it to be gradual, so that it didn't like go super tight and then you had to go straight up. It just wouldn't look right. So I've kind of figured out a formula. I searched the internet for the proper way to decrease a granny stitch in the stripe, and I did not find anything good. Anything that worked for me at all, at least not the gradual decrease that I wanted. So I totally made this up as I went along. It's going to require you to also kind of make it up as you go along. So hopefully this is going to make sense to you. If it doesn't, please give me comments or join our Facebook group and talk to me there about it. But basically, it's a 4-row repeat, and what we're going to do is your clusters are going to be normal. We just did 2 normal rows of clusters in 3s, right? The next one, when we start out, instead of doing 3 right here like we normally would, we're going to do 2 and 2, and then 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, all the way across. And then when we turn around and come back, it's going to be 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, and the last ones will be 2 and 2, right? So what that's going to do is it's going to just start kind of sending it this direction a little bit. And then when we get to the end of that second row of 2s on the end, we're going to make the leap and actually skip a stitch. And then we'll start over. 2 sets of 3, 2 sets of 2, and then start over. Hopefully that's gonna make sense. I'm gonna show it to you, but some people are more about graphs and stuff. So, so that's what this is. So 2 regular normal rows, 2 2s, 2 rows of 2s. So it's going to go this way and then back this way, and then start with your 2s and then end with your 2s and then skip this stitch. So this stitch completely disappears right here. That one in between, you're going to skip over that and start your 3s over here, and it'll lean that direction, so it'll feel comfortable to do that. And then you'll go 3s, 3s, and then 2. Start with your 2s, end with your 2s, skip a stitch. It's the same thing over and over again. So I'm going to show you. I just wanted you to kind of see a good visual of the numbers on that. So let's give it a shot. This was me trying to map it out. I'm like, no one's going to be able to understand that. So hopefully the numbers make more sense than the little stick drawings. So here we are. We're gonna start our decrease. We've done 2 regular rows. We're going to chain up 2. And normally at this point, I apologize for the color of this yarn. It kind of blends right in with the background, but we're going to switch to a brighter green here pretty soon, so hold tight. Normally at this point, we've got your chain 2, and you would do 2 more double crochets in this little space right here to match the one on the bottom. But instead of doing 2 more, we're only going to do 1 more, so that we have a total of 2. We have a cluster of 2 double crochets as opposed to a cluster of 3 double crochets, right? So 2, we're going to do another one that's a set of 2. And all that's going to do is it's going to start kind of pulling it this direction. We're going to do it again on this row up here, so it'll be 2 and 2 right here, and it'll keep pulling it to the point where when we get to the top row, we're gonna actually skip a stitch. And that's how it's gonna decrease it. You can skip a stitch every 2 rows, but it's gonna, the angle is gonna be too sharp if you do it that way. So this is why I'm doing it this way. So go ahead and you've done your 2, now just finish the row of your regular clusters of 3 all the way across. And then come back this direction, and once you get to the last 2 spaces, you're gonna do 2 more stitches. So I'll meet you, go ahead and finish this way, come back and I'll meet you here. Okay, seriously, I hate it when this happens. So I'm actually going to do a more clean, I don't like knots in my work, so I'm actually just gonna cut that out, and I'm going to do a more clean start on the edge. So this is the side that's gonna stay straight and not decrease. I'm just gonna go back over here and bring that yarn in right on the edge so that it looks like it's just a new row. I mean, it is just a new row, but like the color will change right on the new row. And to do that, I just leave the last 2 loops on there and pull the final loop through with the new color. And then it kind of just hides it. Like that, and then chain up 2. Now you're gonna be able to see it on camera better. Okay, so this is the straight edge, not the decreased edge, so I'm still just doing the clusters of 3 over here, and I'll just weave those ends in later. I'm just not a big fan of knots. I don't care how well they combine them together. I like it to be more clean and soft, and you don't feel knots in the way. Okay, so continue on. I'm about to come back to where you are decreasing down to the 2 stitches right here, so just meet me there. Okay, so here we are, we're down to the last 2 stitches. So this is a nice clean square right here. This is the part that's gonna start to kind of decrease. We did 2 stitches on this side, we're coming back and we're gonna do 2 clusters of 2 stitches here. So these are all clusters of 3, we're doing 2 clusters of 2 to start the row and also on the return. So there's 2 instead of 3, and then you're going to jump over and do 2 over here. So do your double crochet in the top of this, or you can do it in the space, whichever feels more natural to you. Just like you're ending that row, right? But now, normally what we would do is we would do 2 double crochets in there, or normally we would do 2 triples because it matches the bottom, right? Because there's the 2 double crochets, and we would normally do the checkerboard and match top and bottom. But instead we're gonna skip this and we're gonna go right over here and go right into our triple crochets. So this is our double crochet, our set of 3 double crochets in this. So we've gone back to our triple cluster. And essentially what we did is we skipped this stitch. So we very slowly kind of decreased, and then we ended up skipping this stitch. So now we're down 1 from where we were before. So now you're just gonna do your regular clusters of 3 all the way this way and all the way back. And then we're gonna go back down to doing 2 and 2. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm gonna do it one more time for you on camera, just so that you can kind of see it start to decrease, and then we will go from there, because there is a part where you're just kind of like connecting in a weird spot. So go ahead and do your clusters of 3 all the way back, and then I'll meet you right here where we do the next one. This might actually be a good spot to mark it. If you have a stitch marker, it does get a little bit confusing knowing what row you're on. You can just kind of go back and count and go, okay, that's 2, that's 2, that's 3, the next one will be 3. But you're going to want to be able to keep track of that. So this is where the actual decrease happened, right there. So on this row, always, where your marker is, it should start over where you have 2 normal rows and then 2 decreased rows. And then you'll just move your marker whenever you actually make the leap. I hope that makes sense, guys. If it doesn't, please, please, please leave me messages and I will try to explain it better. I'm gonna show you how to do it one more time. So go ahead and do your 2 rows of normal, and then we'll start the decrease again. Okay, so we've come to the end of this row. This is where we did the decrease. And then we went straight across, and this is just our regular row now. And then we came back, and these are all the same cluster. So, but when you come to the end of this, you have to kind of remember that it's no longer ending over here, it ends right here. So we're gonna do a double crochet, or sorry, yes, a double crochet right here in the corner. And that's the new end of that row from our decrease. So then we're gonna chain up 2, and then we're gonna start the next decrease. So this was, you remember when we start them with, by minimizing it down to 2 double crochets instead of 3 cluster. That's what we're gonna do here. So this is the first row of doing the 2 double crochet cluster, which counts that chain up 2. So basically you're really only doing 1 double crochet, including the chain up 2. And then you're gonna do it again on the next one over. And then go into your regular clusters of 3 down to the flat end over here. And you can kind of see how it's starting to just slowly decrease up the side there. And we're just gonna continue to do that all the way until we get to the point where you're down to the space that you wanted, which for me was 5 clusters. So just keep doing that. So remember, it goes 2 sets of 2 on one row, 2 sets of 2 on the next row, and then you're gonna actually make the leap and skip the stitch, and then do your 1 row of full 3 cluster, 2 rows of full 3 cluster, and then you repeat that. So it's a 4 row repeat. If you have questions about that, please, please, please leave me a comment, and I will try to walk you through it in a different way if I can, but hopefully the picture from earlier helped out. So just continue until you get as long as you want it to be, and then I'll meet you there. Okay, so I have finished the slow decrease that went all the way to the top, and I'm ending at row 38, which is matched to the other side, so they match perfectly. And we're ending on 5 clusters at the top, just like this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they're going to match up with each other. One thing I can say is that if this is your second side, when you connect them together, you want to make sure you connect them in the correct direction. So for this one, I connected them, see how it, like, that's the front and that's the back. They look different. So you want to make sure that this is where you're going to connect it at the top and it's going the right direction that you want it to go. So in this case, this piece is going to go this direction. So the other piece is going to go the other direction, right? So you want to make sure that when you do the top part, you're going to do it that way. I hope that makes sense. So that you have this going the direction that you want it to actually go when you do it. So that it's not like, you know, if you do it the other way, then you're gonna have 2 that are the same and you want them to be offsetting each other, and you just want those stitches to look good on the top of both sides. So opposite facing each other is how you want it to do. Okay, so that being done, now that's like the hardest part right there. All we have left to do is just attach it to the back, and then we'll do the sleeve, which the sleeve is just a rectangle, so super easy. And then we just attach all the pieces together, and then you're done. So it's actually, you've done the hardest part already. Now we're just gonna attach these 2 pieces together. And it's very, very easy. And I think I'm gonna actually use the same technique to attach all of it together. If you look, if I show you a close-up picture of what the inspiration sweater looked like, where they attach the seams, they just do sort of a chain, join with a slip stitch, chain, join with a slip stitch, back and forth, and that's what joins it. But I can't really tell how they join the back. And I think that on the back and on the sides, they probably did a join as you go sort of thing, but I didn't like the way it looked. And if you zoom in close on the picture, I'm not sure I like the way it looked on their sweater either. I don't know how they did it, but I'm not sure that I like it. It looks a little bunchy, not quite, you know, it doesn't lay flat, and I think they kind of hid that with photography. But so we're going to do our own thing, and I think I'm going to try and do just the chain connection on all of the pieces so that it all kind of goes together. The thing that's going to throw us off here is that here it's going to look good because you're just attaching this color to this color. So just like this, it's going to blend in. But when we start attaching up the back, you're going to cross over multiple colors, and it's going to be, you know, we're going to be attaching this back to this back. So you've got these colors all going together, and they're going to have some random, you know, switchback going across it. I may not like it, to be honest. So we'll see how it turns out, and maybe I'll end up doing an invisible, like a mattress stitch in between there to pull them together. We'll have to see how that works out for us. But for now, we're going to attach this the front to the back, and then we're going to make the sleeve, and then we'll worry about that part when we get to it. But for right now, I'm going to show you how to attach these two. So this is the end of the last row. Just like the other ones, this was like the regular, we did the jump over, this was the regular row, and then the regular row. And then I'm just going to go ahead and do my double crochet into this, and that will finish this off. So now, and there's room for fudging there, right? So like if you get to the top and your numbers aren't quite right, like that's 5 stitches or 5 clusters for like 3 rows. So you've got a little bit of wiggle room there if you're not quite at the right number of rows to match the back, so you can kind of make it happen. I could have stopped this 1 row earlier or 1 row later to whatever, to make it all work together. So there's plenty of wiggle room there. So what I'm gonna do now, and this is kind of the opposite direction of how I went the last time, but we're gonna do this connection here. And if I had planned ahead, I would have probably sewn in my end first, so it's not so in the way, but let's see if I can do it without doing that. So basically, what I did before is I attached these two together so it matches. So you're just going to attach with a slip stitch right there. And then you're going to go chain, chain, and then you're going to jump over here and attach with a slip stitch. And then chain, chain, jump over to the other side of this cluster and attach. And they should be kind of offset from each other. So the reason I chose to do it this way is because if they're lined up with each other, it just kind of didn't match, right? So this, on this one, you'll see that they kind of offset each other, and that's part of the plan so that that sort of checkerboard look continues on. Obviously, if anybody looks closely, they're gonna be like, oh, it's, you know, attached right there. We're not trying to hide that fact. But if these were lined up with these, it just kind of threw everything off balance, and it didn't line up correctly. So that you may see that happen on your own. But so I'm just gonna jump back and forth and do these little chain connections. If this is how we end up connecting the whole piece, this is gonna be so easy, you guys. Chain, chain, go over to the other side of the cluster, attach through that hole right there, which is the space in between the clusters. Kind of as you're going, make sure that they're sort of matching up there. Yep. Okay, ending this is what makes it look square on the edge. So we're going to jump over here, we're going to grab this cluster right here, or the hole between the cluster, and then you're going to chain up 2 and just attach it into the top of that. This is the top of that double crochet right there. We're just going to find the top of it and attach it right there. And that should square it off so it looks nice and clean. And then you're just going to go ahead and knot it. Oh, it kind of knotted on its own there. There we go. And then trim that, and then weave in your ends, and then we will start on the sleeve. So before I work on the sleeve, it might be a good time to pin your pieces together and try it on and see if it's gonna, where the shoulder falls. I can't speak. Where the shoulder falls on it. So you know kind of where your sleeve's gonna start and how long you want it to be. Because I found I ended up adding to my sleeve. My original measurement was shorter than I wanted it to be, so I ended up making it a little bit longer. I recognize obviously that you're probably not at this point yet. You've probably only done one side, but you can still put just one side of the sweater on you and kind of figure out where this edge is gonna fall on your shoulder and then how far you want the sleeve to go from there. So my sleeve ended up being 12 inches wide this way. And how I got that measurement is I measured the biggest part of my arm. So like I said earlier, my arms can be a little bigger than some people's. For a small person, I have big arms. So I measured the top part of my arm and then I just kind of let it go straight from there. So around the top part of my arm is about 12 inches and your arm just gets kind of smaller as it goes down. So you know that, if it fits tight up here, which is actually good, it'll fit nice and loose around here. So 12 inches wide, and then the length I ended up doing 18 inches. I originally planned on doing 15, but I didn't like the way that looked, so I ended up lengthening a little bit. So what that ended up to be for me was 24 rows this way, and it ended up to be 17 clusters this way. So 17 times 3, that's what you're trying to chain. So that's what we're gonna do. And I'm gonna start with a new one because that's what I did with this one. So I'm trying to just kind of repeat what I did with the other one. So far what's happening, because I'm just repeating everything, the colors are actually kind of lining up almost exactly the same, which was not my intention, but see, like, look at how the spacing on that is almost exactly the same. So that was not my intention. I was expecting it to be like way different, but I'm okay with it. I like that they're kind of matching up that way. So I'm going to continue to do that with the sleeve. And with the sleeve, I started with a whole new skein. So that way it also kind of cuts down on how many, this is all I have left of the other skein. And obviously that's not a sleeve. So might as well start with a fresh one, right? So maybe this will be the yarn we use to connect it together. So I'm gonna find the center of this, and that's gonna be fun. And then I'm gonna go ahead and start with the chain and get you started on this, but you probably already know how to do just a basic rectangle. After doing something advanced like that decrease, a rectangle is gonna seem like a piece of cake. So hold on just a second and we'll get started. Okay, so 17 clusters is the goal, which will be about 18 inches long, and 17 times 3, because we chain 3 for each cluster, is 51. So I chained 51, and now we're just going to start brand new, fresh, just like the other ones. This is going to seem like a total repeat of what we did before. So we're just going to go down to the 3rd chain from the hook, and you're going to go ahead and go in the back hoop, or the back loop there, and then you're going to do 2 double crochets in that back loop, because that chain 3 counts as one of the double crochets. So it's going to end up being a cluster of 3. So then skip 2 and then go into the 3rd one and then do 3 double crochets into that back loop. Do that all the way across, and then you're just going to go back and forth until you reach the width that you want around your arm. And for me, that's going to be 24 rows. Okay guys, here we are. I have completed all the pieces and pinned them together and tried it on, and I actually love this sweater. I'm really excited. This is gonna be probably the most colorful thing I own, which says a lot because orange is my favorite color. So I have a lot of orange in my closet, but I don't think I have all these colors put together. Gosh, I just love it. So what I've done so far is I have gone ahead and done the connection, the joining part, on the sleeve. So I joined it across the shoulder on this side, and then I came up the side all the way up. So like, that's really only the two ones you have to do, just across the shoulder and then up the side. I did that ahead of time so that I could work out any issues I might have, and I did have an issue. So instead of doing, on here, we did a connection join with a slip stitch and then chain two, join, chain two. I found that I did not like that much distance between it on this, because when you put it on, it actually kind of stretches out and then it looks like it's got just this gap. So I went back and took it out and I redid it with just a join, chain one, join, chain one, and it actually makes it a lot neater looking, tighter, not so gappy when you're wearing it. So I chose to do, of course I had lots of choices on what to use for my contrasting color, and I was gonna do either the orange or the blue. I decided to do the blue because it was like a little less like, these are my seams, but I actually kind of like it when, like, you know, jeans have like a different color seam, like a red seam or whatever, and you can see it. But on this one, I just felt like there was so much color going on already that I wanted to kind of tone it down a little bit. So I'm gonna use this sort of sky blue that just kind of goes with everything as all of my seams. So I'm gonna show you how to do, we're gonna show you how to do the shoulder and the side, but first I'm gonna show you how to do the back. So there's actually kind of a couple ways to do this. And also when you pin this together, this is how it's done. It's just this one piece goes here and then the opposite side, right? And then you just do the opposite sleeve color that matches, like the sleeve color that matches the right side goes on the left side, the sleeve color that matches the left side goes on the right side. So that's kind of a checkerboard sort of look. And it's pretty easy. There's only 4 pieces, so it makes it a lot easy to put it together. So a lot easy. It makes it very easy to put together. So I'm gonna show you just really quick up the back because it's a very simple, just straight up the back seam. And you're gonna use the same concept through all of it. The only difference on this one is instead of kind of going, when we did before, we kind of zigzagged between the gap and then this gap and then this gap and then this gap. But, and that it worked fine because it was offset like that, but these ones aren't offset. These are actually lined up perfectly. So we're gonna do something a little different, but it's gonna be exactly the same concept though. So you don't even have to pin them together. I just pinned them together so I could try it on because we already know that these rows all match, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and just take this pin out and go ahead and start over here. So the easiest way to do this is to have your yarn coming this way because you're gonna go back and forth and you're gonna want this yarn to kind of work in between on both sides. So just have it pull it this way. I grab the tippy corners on both, and just to get started, I pull through both of them. And then go ahead and just like do a slip stitch to kind of knot it there. Then you're going to just go over to this side here. So what you're going to do, rather than jumping from hole to hole like we did before, we're actually going to go through the chain 2 up the side, or this little, when there's a cluster of 3 here, you're going to go through the side one right there, just that little chain 2. And then you'll go through the hole on the opposite side. So it'll be hole, chain 2, hole, chain 2. Hopefully that's gonna make sense. I'm gonna actually bring it over here so you can see it a little bit better. So you already like kind of attached it there. So we're gonna go ahead and go into this little guy right here, go in from the top. And what that is that's the chain 3 cluster. You're just going between the first chain, or the first double crochet and the second double crochet. And then you're gonna pull up a loop in whatever way is most comfortable for you. And I found that for me, it's different each time. Hold on, let me get this in the right spot. Here, there we go. Okay, so then just pull up a loop and then slip stitch through that other loop right there. Okay, so that's just gonna get you started, and we're gonna pull that tight and weave in that end later. So now is when we're gonna jump back and forth. So you're going to chain 1, go into the gap between these 2 clusters right there, and then chain 1, and then slip stitch again. It's between the first double crochet and the second double crochet of that cluster. and then chain 1, and then jump over to the gap right there. Chain 1 and go through the between the first double crochet and the second double crochet in that cluster. And it's going to make this little back and forth look right there. And it looks actually really cool, kind of clean looking as you go up the thing. So I'm going to continue on, and I will meet you at the end. Just keep doing that back and forth until you get to the end. Okay, so here's what it looks like so far. I just think that looks so cute. I did not think I was gonna like that so much, but I love that it matches all the other edges, so it kind of all goes together, and because I'm using the same color to do that. So we're at the end of, or actually at the top near the neck, and all you're gonna do is chain 1, and then I like to put both sides together, but you wanna do it, there we go. Make sure your yarn is like going this way instead of getting it behind your hook, otherwise you're gonna get all like, I don't know, it's confusing if you do it that way. So go through this one and this one at the same time, and then pull through both, if you can manage it. Like that, and then slip stitch like that, and then slip stitch to knot it. And that is what it looks like. Just kind of a fun, and then when it stretches apart, it kind of does that zigzaggy thing right there, which is why I didn't like the 2 chains, because it made it too gappy. And then that is going to be that. Sorry, there's a knot here again. There you go. Give yourself a little bit of a tail so that you can make your edges nice and crisp with each other. So I usually, when I weave in my ends, I usually take this and just kind of like, see that little indentation right there? I usually take it and just kind of make sure that those are nice and shored up with each other when I weave my ends in, so that it doesn't look like it's got a bump there. And I'll do that on both sides. Okay, so I'm gonna show you how to do the top of the sleeve now. Okay, so in setting up your sleeve, what you wanna do is you wanna fold it in half. And just notice, yours may be different than mine, but for me, mine actually do offset each other, because see how there's like a nice cluster right there on the corner, and on the corner on this side, it's got an open gap. So you're gonna have a cluster where there's a gap, and so forth and so on, kind of checkerboardy, right? So that's how you're gonna figure out where your middle is on here. And for me, the middle is right, well, here probably the easiest way to do it is to go cluster gap, match up your clusters with your gaps. Okay, so the center is right here. So you're gonna wanna take that center, kind of mark it, and then you're gonna wanna hook it to the center where your front and your back connected, right? So like right there. And that's how you know sort of where you should be as you're going on this thing. Now what you're gonna do is you're gonna try to figure out, like, if you're going evenly down the side, how it's gonna look. And these are going to offset each other. So you have a cluster in where the gap is, like that, right? So here's a gap, here's a cluster, here's a cluster, here's a gap. So you kind of like make sure that they just match each other as they go down. Okay, so that's where we're gonna start, right there. So don't let go of it, just go ahead and start it. Or you could pin it, but that's just gonna be a pin sort of in your way. We're gonna go through here, go through this gap, pull up your yarn. Okay, so pull up your yarn through both sides, and then slip stitch to knot it. Chain 1, and just pick whatever side you wanna go through first. So we kind of already are like on this gappy part, which makes it easy to just jump across and go straight to this gap right here. Slip stitch into the gap, chain 1. This time you're not gonna try and go into this guy because they already offset each other. So you're gonna just go jump over and go straight up into this next gap right here. Chain 1, and then go over to the next gap. Space, I guess you call it. Chain 1, jump over to this one, and if you measured it out right, or kind of like laid it out right, once you get up to your pin, it should be matched up. Okay, and then go right over to this gap. Oops, I didn't chain one. Chain one, go over to this gap, and they are matched up with each other. So I'm gonna go ahead and take this pin out, and you should just be able to continue on to the end and it'll just work out perfectly. Okay, so when you're down to the last gap, you're just gonna grab the gap and grab the, maybe the side of this, just to kind of put them together at the same time. And then slip stitch that together, and then slip stitch to knot it. Give yourself a tail so that you can weave in your ends. And that is what it looks like. So when you're wearing it, it kind of stretches out a little bit like that, and you get that kind of V or crisp, what do you call that? Zipper look. Okay, so I'm gonna weave in those ends real quick so they're just kind of out of our way. And then we're gonna do the final stitch, which is up the side and then out the arm. So you're just gonna go straight up this side, and then you're gonna go out this arm to the end, and then you'll be done. So, but you're actually gonna combine both skills now, because as you're going up the edge, you'll notice that these two match up, right? Your cluster's right next to your cluster. Here, let me move this out of the way. So both sides end with a cluster on the corner. For me anyway, yours might be different. They should actually match because you did the exact same thing on both sides, so they should match. So cluster, cluster, space, space, so the clusters and the spaces match each other. So we're gonna do that thing where we're going to do the gap on this side and the cluster into the double crochet on this side. In order for them to match, so before I did the gap on, you know, the side closest to me and the double crochet on the side away from me, but in order for them to match the other side, I'm gonna do the opposite this time. And then when you get up to the sleeve part, you're gonna go back to doing the every other. So you're gonna kind of combine, because like here's the gap and here's the cluster, right? So they're gonna offset each other again. So you're gonna start off doing the thing with the double crochet on the side, but then you're gonna end up doing the gap to gap. I hope that makes sense. I'm gonna show you so that you can see it. So I'm gonna weave in these ends right now so they don't bug us while we're doing that. And am I gonna weave them in? I think I'm gonna actually tie them together so that we know that those actually match with each other. And then I'll weave them in. So that way we know for sure that this doesn't get offset from each other, and then you don't have to pin it. Okay, so we are about to do the side seam, and because we did on the opposite side, that's where we went into that cluster right there. So we had like the space and then cluster, space, cluster. We're gonna do the opposite on this side so that when it's going into the cluster, it's the one nearest me. That way it matches the other side. So it's kind of a mirror image of each other. Not that anyone would probably ever notice, but I just like to pay attention to details like that. Okay, so we'll go through both of those pieces, slip stitch to knot it, and then we're gonna go, we're gonna start with this gap right here. So we're gonna do a chain one, go into the gap, and slip stitch, chain one. This time we're gonna go into that cluster, but just between the first double crochet and the second double crochet. Slip stitch, chain one, and then go find the next gap, which is right there. Chain one, and then go into the side. Don't go in the gap, go in the side of that cluster right there. Oops. Chain one, and then go into the gap in the back. Hopefully this makes sense to you. Probably if you do it wrong, you'll see why I chose to do it that way, because it kind of like pushes them off center from each other, and then one is a little bit higher than the other. So this way it keeps them right next to each other, so they are nice and straight on the bottom and the top. Okay, so keep doing that until you get up to the armpit, and then I'll show you the difference when we switch over, when we do the sleeve, and then we'll be done. Okay, so we made it up to the armpit. This is where the two other seams are connected. So just make sure that you jump over. This is like from the cluster over to the next gap right there. And you're just gonna do that. And then you're gonna chain one. You just kind of go right over the top of it. And then here's where we're going to start offsetting. So see how this cluster offsets between that gap and the cluster right there? So we're gonna go ahead and do the gaps from now on. So you're going to, I already chained one, right? Nope, okay. Yeah, I did. Okay, chain one, and then go into this gap, chain one, and then go into the next gap. And it'll be super easy from now on. And jump over this gap, chain one, jump over to this gap, and just keep doing it till you get to the end. See how it's just like one big long line that continues up, and it crisscrosses over the top of the other seam. So it's just kind of like a little railroad track, just go over the top of it. Okay, here we are. We're at the final stitch. Always so satisfying. You're gonna go through both of them. Pull up a loop. Slip stitch into that, and then make a little knot. Ta-da! And that's what it looks like. I did not think I was gonna like that, and I actually really do like it a lot. So, okay, so I'm gonna weave in the ends, and then I'll put it on for you so you can see what it looks like on. Here it is, you guys. What do you think? I love it. I absolutely love it. In fact, I came downstairs with it on because I wanted to show you, and my son was like, wow, that's a really cool thing you made. So I am really impressed with how it turned out. Very happy. So originally I was going to tell you that like this is how they show it in the picture of the inspiration photo, and I'm not one to tuck sweaters, so I was going to show it to you untucked, but it actually looks better tucked, and you don't have to tuck the whole sweater. This is all out. All I did was, so you don't need buttons, all I did was tuck one little edge right there and one little edge over there, and you're good to go. So super fun. Let me know what you think of this, and I would love to see pictures of how yours turned out. If I were to do it again, I might make this part a little wider, because see how it kind of goes off the shoulder like that, which is kind of sexy, I guess. But if you wanted it to stay up on your shoulder a little bit more, you might want to make the top parts a little wider. But I'm happy with how it turned out. I hope you guys are too. Be sure to join us on my Facebook group, which is Ginell's Quarantine Crochet, so you can show me pictures. And also so you just have the tribe, you know, the crochet tribe to back you up. And I guess I'll see you next time. Bye.